Hello, all. Welcome, a special welcome to those visiting and supporting those getting baptized. Thanks for your support. Let's get started. So I'm at an age where many men are vulnerable to this terrible addiction that just consumes a whole life, really. And many men at our church suffer from it, me included. Hi, my name is Tim, and I'm a Facebook Marketplace addict. Actually, I'm always just looking for things and deals I just don't need at all. I don't even want it sometimes. It's just a good deal. And sometimes that leads me to really weird places. A few months ago, I was looking for a smartwatch, and I came across a watch that normally sells for $600, but it was only selling for $100. The reason it was so cheap was because the guy did not know he had. His listing title was completely wrong. It was a watch from like 8 years ago. That's the equivalent of him selling an iPhone 13, but listing it as an iPhone 8. But I had to figure out, right, was this even real? Could this be a scam? So I did my best research. I stalked the heck out of him, right? I made sure he was a real person. I looked at his Facebook history. He had his account for like over 10 years. Good, okay. I looked at his other listings. They looked like legit listings. I even looked at his friends, and some of his friends had mutual friends with some of my friends. Everything checked out. This dude must be a real person, and so I was gonna buy it. The only problem was that I was out of town that day. So I messaged him, I'm like, hey, can I just send you $20 and you hold it till tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, sure. He sent me his address, and then I went to sleep that day, so excited for a new watch. The next day I was back in Calgary, and I told him I'm coming to pick it up, and he's like, yo, a lot of people want this watch. Send me $80, and then it's yours. And in my head, it makes no sense, because I already sent the deposit, but I was desperate, and I was so excited for the watch, I just sent it anyways. And then he's like, by the way, I forgot I moved. Here's the new address, I just forgot to give it to you. So I put the address into Google Maps, I went there, I couldn't find the house number. It didn't exist. And I messaged him, like, hey, what's up? Why doesn't it exist? He's like, oh, shoot, I gave you the wrong address. He sent me another address, and this time, I'm pretty smart, right? So I'm not. So I put it in beforehand, didn't exist. And I'm like, bro, what's going on? What's happening? And I got no response. I got ghosted. That looming fear that was in the back of my head the whole time became a reality. I got scammed. I couldn't believe it. I trusted him, right? More importantly, I trusted myself. I trusted my research. I made sure this guy was a real dude, that he wouldn't do something shady. How did it end up like this? So there's a lot more to the story. I'll finish it in a bit. But for now, I just want to say, not all things that we trust in are reliable. You can probably think of many times that your friends let you down, that your work, your school, your governments even, they let you down, and especially ourselves. How many times have you let yourself down? I'm a procrastinator, and so I'm always depending on future Tim to deal with my laziness now, and future Tim hates me for it. He thinks I'm untrustworthy. I let myself down all the time. But this raises a question, doesn't it? What are we trusting in right now that might be unreliable? If I'm building my life on success, is that good enough? If I'm building it on the hope that people like me and I'm well wanted, is that going to satisfy me? I don't think it will. I don't think it will ever be enough, but there's something that can be enough. And it's something that 3 of our friends here getting baptized are committing to for the rest of our lives. And so our focus today is this question here. What is a trustworthy foundation for life? Let's find out. Let's read Proverbs 3:3-6. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. From this passage, we learn that we need to, 1, trust the principle of love, and 2, trust the source of love. The first point focuses on these verses. So, let love and faithfulness never leave you. And we'll skip to the end. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and men. So to understand what we're supposed to be committing to, what we're supposed to be trusting in, let's look at those 2 words, love and faithfulness. Love is the summary of all of God's law because it's at the core of who he is. Apostle Paul says, whoever loves has fulfilled the law. Apostle John says, whoever loves has been born of God. Now, in English, we've completely butchered the word love, right? Because we can love our family, and with the same word, we can say that we love those hot dog buns at T&T. And obviously, most of the time, you love your family more, right? The word love in Hebrew is hesed, but with kind of like a clearing your throat sound. It's called hesed. So let's say it together. So 1, 2, 3, hesed. That word has a much deeper and stronger meaning than just liking something or having strong emotions for something. We don't have a direct translation in English, but it encompasses our ideas of love, loyalty, mercy, and kindness. One way to think about it is when someone goes above and beyond the expectations of a relationship, and it's used to describe the love of God, where He is always committed to our greatest good no matter what. The next word is faithfulness, and it's almost like a synonym for love, okay? So the word in Hebrew is emet. So everyone say emet in 3. 1, 2, 3, emet. Okay. And it actually means something along the lines of steady, firm, and true. When you take emet when emet is used in the context of a relationship, the idea of steadiness translates to faithfulness and loyalty. Because God is faithful, we can bet that He is for us, even when we reject and walk away from Him, and we definitely will. Even as Christians, we will. As this great philosopher once said while reflecting on the condition of humanity, you're hot, then you're cold. You're yes, then you're no. You're in, then you're out. You're up, and you're down. That's as deep as like being a plastic bag, right? It's so deep. That's the fickle nature of humans. But God is constant. His faithful love remains no matter what, and we can depend on it. It's like this. I have a son, Josiah, he's 2. When I take him swimming and I kind of take him to the deeper end, where his feet can no longer touch the ground, he's often wrapped around me like cling wrap. And he's probably thinking in his head at that moment, if he's going to let go or if his grip fails, he's just going to drift away and drown, right? But that's the reality is his hold isn't doing really anything at all. It's my hold that's actually keeping him steady and safe. That's God's faithfulness to us. His hold is constant and strong even when ours fail. He is faithful. God is loving and He is faithful to us. As we accept that and as we step into a relationship with Him, we're changed in a way where we also always seek the highest good of others even when it doesn't directly benefit us. Because they are important to God, they are important to us. God's love and faithfulness changes how we think about and see the world. Let's go back to the story about me being scammed on Facebook Marketplace. I was so angry, right? I had so many different intrusive thoughts about just getting revenge on him and destroying him in any way I could. Out of my 20 ideas, the most petty one, and kind of creepy a little bit, was this one. I knew that his first address he gave me was his real one, right? And so I wanted to camp outside his house and just torture him by just making his life a little bit inconvenient, okay? So figuring out which one was his car, and then I poke little holes on the inside of his tires so he can't find it. And then it's not like I'm slashing it, but he have to refill it every few weeks. That's annoying, right? Or just taking my kid's diapers and wiping it on the door handle, but he won't know it, right? Things like that, right? I had so many of those kind of thoughts. And as I was sharing those intrusive thoughts to one of my friends who wasn't a Christian, he was laughing, but he's also dude, aren't you a pastor? That punched me. That hit me so hard, right? And I'm like, shoot, he's right. I forgot. I am, right? But it's not even the fact that I'm a pastor. More importantly, first and foremost, I am a Christian. I'm committed to following Jesus and His example. I'm saved by grace so that I can now give grace. Revenge has nothing to do with my faith. And so I thought really deeply about the guy who scammed me. And instead of just seeing him as some evil offender who's just trying to take advantage of people, I let Jesus inform what I knew about him. What do I know about him? I know that he's a sinner. He's a victim of a broken world. He's just trying to make it by, to survive. He's trusted the wrong foundations for life. I knew that God loved him, that he needs Jesus just as much as I need Jesus. But if Jesus came back right now, this man might be the first person Jesus comes to. Through that, I decided on grace. I decided love. I followed love and faithfulness. I messaged him. I also messaged his girlfriend because he was ghosting me, right? That I didn't care too much about the money, but I did care about his character. I told him to be honest with me, and I'll be gracious with him. I can have him pay me back in a few months. I can lessen the amount. Whatever he needs, I'll work with him. And then he responded to me. He responded to me with his full story. He was a semi-pro athlete, and this checks out because I stalked him, right? He was a semi-pro athlete before he got a big injury. After losing his scholarships and his position on his team, he was a captain, he eventually got addicted to painkillers, and that's when his life started falling apart. It fell apart for years. And now he's really trying to bring it back together, right? He's trying to stay clean. He's going to support groups. He's meeting up with his sponsors. He's even serving the homeless. But with me, he slipped up because someone offered him more money for the watch. And so he sold it to them while still taking money from me. And he said that was so wrong. He said that he was so ashamed of his actions. Like if he can go back in time, he would redo that. And then he paid me back, which is awesome. The whole time, I was showing him as much grace as I possibly could. And he actually said a few times, I can't believe a good guy like you exists. And that made me feel good. But I told him straight up, I'm like, no, like it's my faith in Jesus that allows me to choose grace and love in hard times. And I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting him to like fall on his knees and like accept Jesus. He actually totally ignored that, didn't respond to it at all. But I genuinely hope that through this interaction, he's not impressed by me, but he comes to know, favor, and lift up the good name of Jesus. And I would have totally missed out on this blessing if I did not choose to love, or if I did not choose love. At any given moment, love for God and love for people will guide you to do the right thing. Isn't that crazy to think about, right? We often think about God's plan for our lives as this mystery you need special power to uncover, but you always, always have the answer for your next step in life. Follow love. But the way of love is hard and inconvenient, and it often requires sacrifices. Like when you want to slack off and waste away for a few days, weeks, or months, love makes you diligent and hardworking for the sake of other people. Or when we have that friend that we know is going down the wrong path, but confronting them might make them hate us, we do it out of love. Love and faithfulness moves us to make sacrifices that most people are not willing to make, but our passage tells us that it's worth it. And we can trust that love is the right way because that's what God promises us, which leads me to my next point. Trust in the source of love. Let's just read the second half of our passage. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. So if you're anything like me, and you're reading this, you're cringing so hard. What is stuff about lean not on your own understanding? When I read it, I think about Asian parent vibes, right? When they tell you to do something that makes no sense to you, and you're just genuinely curious. You're just like, oh, like why? What's the reason? And they're like, that sound. Why are you asking questions? I'm your parent. I just say it and you do it. That infuriates me, right? This is what our proverb is saying. Just follow blindly, don't ask questions. Even though God gave you this brilliant brain, don't use it. Is that what this is saying? No, I don't think it is at all. A few weeks ago, I had an itch to play games. And so I looked up best single-player RPG. I'm one of those clickbait guys, right? And so a game called Elden Ring kept popping up, and I started playing it. And it is such a hard game. I never died so many times in a game before. And what makes it worse is that the monsters killing me were so scary looking. It was like a horror movie, right? And so I was struggling, and I was desperate, and I started to look up tips on how to beat certain levels and monsters, and that's when I came across this program called Cheat Engine. So what Cheat Engine does is it allows you to go into the coding of the games to change the values. Essentially, you get to remove the limits that the developers put in the game to make it so hard. And so all of a sudden, my character had infinite money. I can have any armor, I can have any weapon I wanted with just a few clicks. I could kill any monster with literally one hit. I was one punch man in that game. And it was so fun. I had such a good time, but only for about 2 hours. So despite the fact Elden Ring was one of the most highly rated and loved games, I stopped playing after a few hours because it was actually boring, right? Even though I was getting everything I wanted. And that's when I realized I was missing the whole point of the game. I wasn't enjoying it the way it was meant to be enjoyed. I was just trying to get the results without the process, and it completely destroyed the whole experience for me. Christians believe in a God who created everything. And so, in a way, he's kind of like a game developer. And we can see his coding and his design all over, right? Especially if you're looking at systems and cycles, whether it's in science or how the weather works or how natural resources are recycled and so on. Dude, math. Who here likes math? No one likes math. Okay. Math is mind-blowing. Years ago, a Nobel Prize winner wrote a paper about the unreasonable effectiveness of math that points out the fact that it makes no sense whatsoever why math as a system works so perfectly. Humans didn't create math, right? It was just there. We simply discover it, and yet from math, almost everything we know and have built is built on that one, right? And so while people are kind of like, they shrug and they say, I don't know, I don't care, it's just there, let's just use it. As Christians, we have an answer. It's because there's a designer behind the design of math. And so let's follow that logic. If God created everything by design, then everything has a purpose, including us, including humans. There is a way we're meant to live in order to thrive, and spoiler, that's in relationship with God himself. But the Christian life seems so hard because Christ followers have rules that other people don't have to follow. Like, for example, as we talked before, choosing to love and sacrifice for people we don't like sometimes. But just like a good game developer, God's not trying to ruin our experience, but he's trying to actually use the rules to maximize our joy and meaning in life through a relationship with him. We can either choose to accept his definition and design for what is good and evil, what is right and wrong, or we can be like so many people before us and choose to come up with our own definition of what is good and evil and what life should be about. This isn't new to us. In the past, we have redefined it as a good thing to enslave other humans. We have redefined it as a good thing to try to eradicate certain races. We redefined it as a good thing to try to get rid of God himself by pinning him on the cross. And we're still redefining things all the time today. Perhaps somewhere in our hearts, we redefine it as a good thing to step on other people to lift ourselves up. We define it as a good thing to find entertainment at someone else's expense, like gossiping. And we redefined it as a good thing to excessively game and watch shows and eat. How do you think that's working out for us? If you want to trust in something better as a foundation for life, try Jesus. Maybe you're thinking, but it's too good to be true. A God that loves and dies for a mess like me? Impossible. Maybe it is. But at the very least, research it. See if the claims are true and accurate. Maybe you don't trust God now, but if you look into the evidence and search for the truth about him, you may find that he is the only truth that is worth building our lives on. I believe that one of the best ways to research is to look at other Christians you respect and ask them questions and hear their story.